Quinley, the Chi-Town is Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
It's time to have that uncomfortable conversation about General Manager Ryan Poles. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, make sure you also do me another huge favor, but also hit the like button on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. All right, Bears fans, so we are a day removed from the game against the San Francisco 49ers, where, softly put, we got absolutely annihilated. They whooped our ass. It wasn't even close. There's not anything really good to say about this game, rather than, having our franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. He played decent, 134 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. He did have that 1 turnover, but he's been taking care of the ball over the last couple of weeks. And of course, Rome Odunze had another really good game as well. Their connection continues to thrive, and that is a positive moving forward towards the future. But other than that, it was a pitiful game, losing 38-13. And I want to make it very clear that I don't really blame this too much on Thomas Brown. I was cautiously optimistic that, the team would play with a little bit more fight. They got what they wanted. Most players wanted Matt Eberflus gone. They got what they wanted, and they just seemed like they came out flat. And yes, you can pin that on Thomas Brown. We were all hoping that, they would have him more prepared, but at some point, the players need to take accountability as well. And defensively, offensively, everyone looked flat. And it just looks like this team no longer wants to play. But we need to start talking, have this uncomfortable conversation about our general manager in Ryan Poles, because for the longest time we were sitting here saying, hey, Matt Eberflus is the sole problem, which, yeah, he was a huge problem with this organization. But after yesterday's ass kicking to the San Francisco 49ers, I think we all need to grow up a little bit and understand that Matt Eberflus was not the only problem within this organization. And I also think Ryan Poles, I wouldn't go as far as saying that he has a red hot seat, but his seat is starting to get a little bit warmer. And I understand Kevin Warren said prior to firing Matt Eberflus a couple of weeks ago, saying that Ryan Poles is safe. He will lead the charge for the next Chicago Bears head coach. But to me, after losing the way that they did, especially considering that the San Francisco 49ers had some of their best players out, talking about Christian McCaffrey, Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, that's concerning. That means, the Bears not only lack good coaching, but they also lack the talent necessary to compete with some of these better teams. And, even though San Francisco 49ers are struggling, they're still, to me, a very good team, but they lost to 4th and 5th stringers yesterday. And that is when you start looking at general manager Ryan Poles and how he built this team, and it's still not good enough. The offensive line sucks. The defensive line, got decent pressure on Brock Purdy yesterday, but the defense overall is not playing well. One of the linebackers he signed, in Tremaine Edmonds, is not living up to his contract that Ryan Poles gave him a couple of years ago. This roster just lacks the premium talent that is needed to be a very good organization. And this is when we're really looking at general manager Ryan Poles. There's actually rumors going around inside Halas Hall right now that Ryan Poles' seat is reportedly warmer than Bears are letting on. Once again, we'll get into that in just a little bit on today's episode of Keek on the Mic and just get your opinion on that. But let's take a look at what Ryan Poles promised a couple of years ago when he first became the Chicago Bears general manager. He said, our philosophy will be building this team through the trenches. We will focus on building a winning culture. I believe in Matt Eberflus. He's the right coach for this team. We will take the North and never give it back. So let's really break down that statement from Ryan Poles. Our philosophy will be building this team through the trenches. He has yet to build a dominant offensive line here in Chicago. You could say that Darnell Wright is playing really well. I think he has a bright future. Besides that, you brought in Nate Davis, Coleman Shelton. Braxton Jones is a terrible left tackle. He plays really good against weaker edge rushers, but anytime he plays a mid-tier edge rusher, he gets blown back on every single goddamn play. Other than that, the offensive line has struggled ever since Ryan Poles has taken over as general manager of the Chicago Bears. And I heard this a couple of weeks ago from another radio analyst. He said the reason why Ryan Poles can't build an offensive line because he was a terrible offensive lineman. He never made it in the National Football League. So he is drafting and bringing in guys that played like him. And that could very well be true. You look at the defensive line, I feel like he's done a little bit better, but we're still lacking. We're still lacking there on the defense side of the ball, especially on the defensive line. I think that can be a main focus as well. But overall, the trenches, he has done a terrible job building the trenches here in Chicago. And when you look at all the good rosters across the league, that's where it starts. You're supposed to start by building the trenches. What did Ryan Poles do when he first came in as the Bears general manager? He didn't come in and try to fix the trenches right away. In his first draft as the Chicago Bears general manager, of course, we didn't have a first-round pick, and that wasn't his fault. But with the 2 second-round picks, he went Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. And don't get me wrong, I love Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. I think they're two good pieces to our football team. But when you knew that you were coming into a situation where you were tearing down, you should have built the trenches right then and there in round 2, not draft back-to-back secondary pieces, right? Let's move on. We will focus on building a winning culture. It has been a losing culture here in Chicago. And it was much due to the fact that they hired Matt Eberflus, whether that was Ryan Poles' pick or not. Matt Eberflus was still the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and the culture has been shit. For a second there, we were looking like it was looking good. You know, we went from 3-14 to 7-10, and then things took a downward spiral this season as well. It is currently a losing culture here in Chicago. So Ryan Poles, that depends on you as well. Once again, he said, I believe in Matt Eberflus. He's the right coach for this team. Matt Eberflus ended up being one of the worst coaches, if not the worst coach in Chicago Bears history. And once again, we will take the North and never give it back. We will take the North and never give it back. The Chicago Bears are set to have their third straight last place finish in the NFC North. Ryan Poles' seat should possibly be red hot. And I think Kevin Warren, especially since he really has no ties to Ryan Poles, he did not hire Ryan Poles. He came after Poles, right? They have to think long and hard about the future of Ryan Poles. Once again, all the things that Ryan Poles promised us prior to, being the Bears GM when he took over as Bears GM a couple of years ago has not been fulfilled, right? You talk about the tenure of Ryan Poles. He's bad at hiring coaches and coordinators, bad drafting blue chip talent, bad at building the trenches, bad at signing free agents, bad cutting and trading mistakes, and bad at taking the North. We are currently the laughingstock of not only the NFL, but the NFC North. We can't keep up with the Green Bay Packers. We can't keep up with the Minnesota Vikings. We can't keep up with the Detroit Lions doing the same shit that we are doing. I really don't think it's that hard to try to build a quality offensive line, and he hasn't been able to do it at a high level. He's been trying to put Band-Aids on a long-term situation. Nate Davis was a miss. Coleman Shelton, Braxton Jones. Tevin Jenkins is good when he's healthy, but he's been unable to build a strong offense and defensive line, and that is the main problem with the Chicago Bears football team. The infrastructure is all fucked up right now, and that is on Ryan Poles. And once again, I don't believe that Ryan Poles is going to be fired after losing 38-13 against the San Francisco 49ers, but once again, there is now rumors, and this is according to Sports Mockery. I know Eric Lambert. I know a lot of people don't really like him, but they said a source informed Sports Mockery that the vibe inside Halas Hall is very tense, and there is a feeling that more is right on next week's game in Minnesota. Once again, I think Ryan Poles has the opportunity to possibly hire one more head coach, but his seat is very high. If the Chicago Bears get spanked the rest of the season like they did yesterday in San Francisco, and it's very possible you're playing the NFC North once again, Green Bay one more time, Minnesota one more time, Detroit one more time, and to me, a very good Seattle Seahawks team as well. So they can very well destroy the Chicago Bears, right? So if that's the result for the remainder of the season, I think Ryan Poles' seat will be red hot because now this roster is just breaking down. There's really nothing exciting about this roster anymore besides, of course, Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. But now it seems like the Chicago Bears, because for the longest time, it seemed to me that the Chicago Bears really didn't have a whole lot of needs, right? It felt like we were just maybe a center away or this player away from being good, or maybe just a head coach away from being a very good football team. But now when you really look at it, we have a long list of needs, and now it seems like instead of us going forward, it seems like we're going backwards with Ryan Poles as the Bears general manager. You look at the needs that we need this offseason. We need a head coach. We need 2 quality guards. We need a quality center. We need a wide receiver 3 if Keenan Allen doesn't return. We need a defensive tackle. We need an edge rusher. We need a free safety if Bayard returns. I think he's on a 2-year deal. We need a cornerback too. Tyreek Stevenson. The regression of Tyreek Stevenson needs to be studied. Terrell Smith is pretty good, but we probably could still use a solid cornerback too. We need a new left tackle. Braxton Jones is just not going to get it done. We need another tight end. I don't think Gerald Everett's going to return to the Chicago Bears next year. I think we need a backup running back for DeAndre Swift. When you look at Roschon Johnson, he gets no action other than short yardage situation. So we could possibly use another running back as well. So when you look at this list, it's starting to add, and that's not even adding the fact that we may need a middle linebacker as well, because I think we overpaid on Tremaine Edmonds a couple of free agencies ago, right? And to me, it just seems like we're going backwards at this point. So once again, I believe these little rumors going around Halas Hall that Kevin Warren may get fed up. He may want to just start fresh. And the reason why I say this, and this goes back to the conversation that we had just a couple of weeks ago on Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson made it very clear that he wants to be aligned with his general manager. If he does not believe in Ryan Poles, he is not coming to Chicago. And I think that's going to translate to all the head coaches that interview for the Chicago Bears job. I think Chicago is a great destination. Of course, you have Caleb Williams. You have some pieces on both the offense and defensive side of the ball, but you also have a true issue on the upper management. We're talking about the McCaskies. We're talking about Ryan Poles. You can maybe call out Kevin Warren as well. I don't think coaches are going to want to be a part of this function. They're going to want to make sure that Ryan Poles is here for the long term, or if he's not here for the long term, what is your plan moving forward? So now Kevin Warren is in a really awkward spot, right? Because I believe things are getting tense, and I think Ryan Poles' seat is getting warmer, and rightfully so. So now Kevin Warren has to make the choice to either possibly extend Ryan Poles so he is aligned for the long-term future for the Chicago Bears and this next head coaching hire, or you may need to fire Ryan Poles and find a new general manager. And I don't think the Chicago Bears want to do that, because if you fire Ryan Poles, you are basically starting all over. So there's a lot of dysfunction going around with the Chicago Bears right now. So that's why I think Kevin Warren is going to allow Ryan Poles to pick his next head coach, and they are going to be tied together. But if that is going to be the case, they possibly need to consider extending Ryan Poles. But when you ask some Bears fans, and even I'm on the edge right now, I'm not sure if that's the right move at this point for this organization. So this is going to be a very interesting situation moving forward for the next couple of months. I'm not sure what the Chicago Bears are going to do, but I don't think Ryan Poles is as safe as many believe him to be within the Chicago Bears organization. So we'll see what Kevin Warren does. He made it clear that, Ryan Poles is safe. He is going to be making a decision on the head coach with his help. So I don't know what is going to happen, but when you look at the current needs of this roster, when you look at the inability of Ryan Poles building the trenches, or his mishaps on trades, or giving out massive contracts and free agency of guys that are not working and helping the Chicago Bears win football games, it's not looking good for Ryan Poles. And I'm starting to get irritated to the fact that I'm looking at him as well. We thought it was just Matt Eberflus, which, yeah, Matt Eberflus was a huge part of the losing here in Chicago. But we need to start looking at Ryan Poles as well, because he hasn't been good here in Chicago. And to me, as a Bears fan, he should also be on thin ice. So Bears fans, how do you feel about this rumor about things being tense inside Halas Hall? Do you think Ryan Poles is safe for at least one more year, or do you think Kevin Warren is actually considering maybe firing Ryan Poles, depending on how things end here to end the Chicago Bears season? Let me know down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic.